Welcome back to Philosophy and Ethics in Games, the series where I break down the stories in some of our favorite games and ask the tough questions to figure out what is right and what is wrong. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today we're finishing off Season 4 of Telltale Games The Walking Dead. In case you missed any of the previous episodes, I've linked a playlist in the description below. As I continue to break down the series, I'll add new videos to the playlist so you can find them all in one place. Episode 4 of the final season of Telltale Games The Walking Dead is titled Take Us Back, and after a brief recap of the events that got us here from AJ, we pick right up where we left off in episode 3, with Clementine laying on the railing of a sinking ship as she tries to snap back to reality after being knocked down in an explosion. After losing her hat, she locates AJ and fights to get to his location, saving him at the last possible second and working together with him to get off the ship and back onto the dock. They have to fight off one of Lily's men before finding Lily herself escaping on a raft. The easy thing to do here would be to just shoot her with an arrow and be done. But by now, you all know that we don't do things just because they're easy. Lily probably deserves to die for all that she's done, and she could easily be considered a threat in the future if she isn't put down. But that doesn't necessarily mean that shooting her would be the right choice here. Through the conversations we've had with her, as well as the experience we have from Season 1, we know that she's been through a lot, and her trauma drives her in ways that we don't even fully understand. We also know that her intention, no matter how misguided, was to keep the people of the Delta safe. We don't know what kind of community the Delta is, though, outside of some references to food and shelter that they keep promising the kids if they come along quietly. Yes, they're searching for soldiers and going about getting them entirely wrong, but that on the surface doesn't tell us much. What have they been through to bring them to the point of stealing children to make them into soldiers? Was that always the plan, or was there some desperation that drove them to commit atrocities? There may be no justification that would make the things that they've done okay, but knowing the motivation and history would help a lot when making a decision on what to do with Lily. And that's the difference between empathizing with someone and justifying their actions. You can understand them and why they made a choice, no matter how heinous that choice is, without agreeing with it. Empathy drives mercy, while justification drives collusion. We also need to consider what Lily appears to be going for as a resolution. She openly doesn't want to die, but I think that is more of an involuntary defensive mechanism than anything else. And here, we're kind of leaving the realm of the knowable for a second and stepping into speculation. I think that a part of Lily wants to die, wants the pain of the world to end, but at the same time, another part of her refuses to give up. It's the same side of her we saw come out when Larry died, after she'd admitted to Lee that Larry was all she had in the world, and she didn't know what she'd do without him. The part that wants to die is reckless and willing to do drastic things, hoping that she'll come up against something that she won't be able to fight off. The part that wants to live pushes her through those impossible situations and keeps her going even when all hope seems lost. Meeting back up with Clementine brings back a flood of old memories and brings the inner conflict front and center, making it impossible to do something as simple as shoot Clem from a couple of feet away or finish her off when she has the upper hand. And that inner conflict really comes to a head after the boat is destroyed and the reality of being alone once again hits her. She flees on the raft because it is the practical thing to do, the thing the survivor side insists on. But she eggs on Clementine as the other side begs for a mercy kill. Clementine, being the one to do it, would also bring things full circle, with the little girl turned survivor getting revenge for Carly or Doug, while also eliminating the biggest threat the Erickson kids face. But she isn't really a threat anymore. The kids can deal with her, and they know it now. She also knows that trying to come back for them wouldn't be worth the effort it would take, if she's even allowed back into the Delta after losing so many people and a boat. It's likely, if things there are as rough as she says they are, that she won't be welcomed back and she'll be stuck wandering alone once again. And that is an even worse fate than death for her, as she tells Clem that the Delta was the first home she'd found in years. Not shooting her keeps the blood off Clem's hands in the same way that we kept it off of AJ's hands by telling him to lower the gun at the end of the last episode. It also shows some consistency when it comes to how we should be teaching AJ by refusing to shoot at someone who isn't an active threat. As Lily drifts away into the night, the boat finally collapses next to the dock as Clem and AJ escape the area. There's some zombies to deal with, as well as a couple of raiders, but the group reunites and most of them are able to escape using one of the raiders' carts. The one other thing of note here is that Minerva shows back up, getting bitten and shot for a second time with an arrow from Clem. But really there isn't much more to talk about, as Clem, AJ, and Ten wind up fleeing the beach together and making their way into a cave system. We get a glimpse in the cave of who AJ is becoming, as he loses his temper a bit and recounts the things that Clem has told him and done over the season. And this is where we have a big decision to make. Should we support AJ in his desire to have more freedom in the choices he makes, or are we afraid that we've created a monster that can't be trusted? To be honest, based on some of the writing I've seen from Telltale at times, this is one of those decisions I absolutely hate to have to make. I feel like I've done a decent job with teaching AJ, though I've not been perfect and I'm not sure if the lessons landed in the way that I think they did. Besides that, AJ is still really young, and it's not fair that he should have to grow up as fast as he's had to. Now, that can't really be helped given the state of the world, but I can speak from experience here as a parent who's recently had a kid graduate high school and go out into the world on their own. Even after a little over 18 years of trying to teach and instill good values, it's terrifying to think that this little baby that once fit in the palm of my hand is now flying solo. It's not like AJ would be going off to college or leaving home to join the military or some other career, but the thought of him making what would be normally a very mature decision, like who should live and die, is scary. In the end, I chose to give him some freedom and hope that it wouldn't be the wrong choice. Like I said, with Telltale's writing, that could mean anything. Hitting that button could cause AJ to turn and shoot 10 for all I know, justifying it by saying the boy shouldn't have gotten Mitch killed or something. Thankfully, that doesn't happen, and AJ seems relieved and a bit surprised to see Clem show confidence in him. With that out of the way, the group makes their way out of the cave, discovering Violet on the other side. She'd left the others, intent on finding Clem and making sure that she was safe. I want to say here that they then made their way back safely to the school and everyone lived happily ever after. But it couldn't be that simple. For a while, they walk peacefully through the woods, talking about how life will be moving forward and even coming up with a new name to use for the school in the future. The whole time, my heart was racing more than it ever did during the action scenes, because I've seen enough Walking Dead between the game and the show to know that when people are happy, something bad usually happens. Occasionally, someone gets shot from behind as we're looking at them, but sometimes there's an unexpected explosion or a surprise zombie. That kind of feeling might be normal when you're watching or playing a season finale, where you know there's going to be another season to deal with whatever might happen. It even makes sense from a writing perspective, because you want people to have a reason to come back and watch the next season. But a series finale should be different. The expectation when you're watching or playing the finale of something is that all the threads will be wound up and the remaining characters will be in a better place than when they started. It's what makes stories interesting and fun, because we know at the end of the day, no matter what our favorite characters are going through, things will work themselves out and be alright. But this is Telltale and The Walking Dead. Clem, Violet, AJ, and Ten come across an old bridge that looks like it's seen much better days. My first thought was, that thing is going to collapse. But I was so wrong. As they're close to the other side of it, with only a small gap to jump before reaching the other side, Minerva comes out of nowhere to ruin the day. She's been bitten twice, shot with at least 2 arrows, and she's trailing a herd of zombies behind her. As Clem holds off what I can only assume is some kind of superhuman and her zombie cohorts, Violet helps AJ cross the gap. Very briefly, the next few moments see Violet save Clem, 10 fight to get to his sister, and Clementine split her leg wide open on an axe. Even as zombies are attacking Minerva, the girl just refuses to die. Clem somehow manages to get across the gap, and we watch AJ as he makes his first tough call, choosing to shoot 10 and save Violet, as the boy was refusing to leave his sister and Violet was refusing to leave him. Violet isn't happy with AJ when she finally makes it across, but he actually made a good call. Maybe giving him some freedom wasn't such a bad idea. But we're not done yet, as the trio still has to make their way back to the school through a surprise herd of zombies. For some reason, there are thousands of dead on the side of the river Clem and the group jumped to. It doesn't really make a ton of sense because there is no way that they were crossing the bridge or river without falling into the water and being swept away. But in typical Walking Dead fashion, zombies multiply when you least expect it. Violet jumps a fence, becoming separated from Clem and AJ, and Clem tells her to just head back and meet them at the school before her and AJ head for some rocks, attempting to outclimb the zombies. And this is the point in the game where I very nearly stopped playing altogether. As Clem and AJ are escaping the herd, one of the zombies grabs Clem's leg and bites her. A million thoughts ran through my head over the next few minutes, as I fought to get the pair safely to James's Walker barn from the last episode. But the primary one was that just maybe they would be able to save her if they removed her leg fast enough. Then they got to the barn, securing it just well enough that the massive herd outside was held at bay, and Clem started becoming very pale and weak. She was starting to look and sound a lot like Lee from Season 1, and I was not having any of it. The game was forcing me to act as both AJ and Clem, and all I wanted to do was shut the whole thing down and refuse to even make this video. To me, it was all some sick, twisted joke on Telltale's part, building up 4 seasons just to end it all with this horrible, meaningless ending. The expectation was that I would be sad, like when Lee died, that I would see AJ as a new Clem, that I would be as attached to his character as I was to her after everything Lee had done to keep her alive. But sadness wasn't what I was feeling. I was disappointed, angry, frustrated. Clem couldn't die. And I'm sure AJ would have felt the exact same way as he watched her fade away. She asked him to shoot her if she got bit when they were talking at the school back in episode 3. But now, I couldn't bring myself to make him go through with it. Not just because any feelings I had were gone, but because he would need to put an axe in her head, and that just seemed so much worse than having Clem shoot Lee. AJ covered himself in zombie guts and prepared to leave his surrogate mother alone in the barn. But at the very last second, he changed his mind and lifted the axe up in the air, bringing it down in a single swing and causing everything to go black. But there was still more to play through, as I led Clementine into a burning fortress to find AJ. This was the scene they'd referenced a couple of times, the bad thing that happened at McCarroll Ranch. I thought that it was maybe a kind of purgatory, that Clem was reliving the memory one more time in the afterlife. But then I found myself playing again as AJ, and asking when the episode would finally end. What more hell could Telltale put me through? Gathering some fish and rescuing Clementine's hat from the river as it floated by, I made my way back to the school. I just wanted to reach the credits, more out of spite than any desire to see what the rest of the group was up to in this new Clementine-free world. But as I handed in the fish I'd caught, I heard her voice, and I nearly jumped out of my skin.
What you doing there, goofball?
I thought it was some kind of hallucination at first, but then the camera turned, and there she stood, minus one leg. But that didn't really make me feel a lot better, as the episode wrapped up with a couple of small conversations, and one last meal with the family. I've had the occasional problem with the writing in this series and in this season, but none of the problems I've had hold a candle to what I just went through with this ending. Telltale pulled one of the worst fake-out deaths I've ever seen in any piece of media, rivaling the Glenn fake-out death from the show. There was no way she was getting out of that barn. The infection had taken hold, as we've seen it do so many times over the course of the series, and she was moments away from turning. Either none of those people needed to die, or there was something special about Clementine that made her immune, and the effects that we saw were from shock, meaning she didn't even need to lose her leg. Other than that ending, I would say the season overall was actually not too bad. If I had to rate it, I would probably drop it second to the first season, but I don't even know that I could rate the seasons in that way after Season 1. Season 1 wasn't perfect, but it was easily my favorite. After that, each season had its ups and downs, and while moments and characters stick out in their own ways, none of the follow-up seasons really hit me as great or awful. But I'll talk more about my opinions on them in a series retrospective at some point. I'll also be covering some other aspects of The Walking Dead in various videos over time, as there are a ton of ethical questions that we could deep dive into, and lots of characters still to pick apart in friend or foe. But here we are. After 20 videos and 4+ months, we've come to the end of the road for The Walking Dead in the Philosophy and Ethics series. I'll be covering Michonne at some point, but I think I'm going to make that miniseries something on its own. It'll be similar to this format, but just not on Thursdays, as we're going to be jumping into a new game starting next week. Leave a comment down below and tell me whether you gave AJ the freedom to make choices or not, and what you thought of Clementine's fake-out death. If you want to get your name in the videos, the chance to see some cool behind-the-scenes stuff, and to get early access to new videos, you can join my Patreon or sign up for a channel membership here on YouTube. That's all I've got for now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.